Ultimately, video games are no different.
How much fiction do you read?
I hate fiction. I'm judging hard right now. This is bounds of weirdness. Nobody knows.
None of it's real.
My feelings are real. I can play whatever and still be a normal human.
You are not a normal human. You're not normal. This video is sponsored by Aura. Aura is going to keep you safe digitally. If you ever Google your name, it's a horrifying thing. All the information that'll pop out, it's out there. Data brokers constantly consolidating information about you. They're selling it. Speaking of which, there was just a data breach at AT&T. 73 million people of past customers and current customers of AT&T, their data was leaked everywhere. I know because Aura gave me an immediate alert when my information hit the dark web. Aura is a way to fight back to get your information off those data broker websites and away from scammers and spammers. Make sure Aura has your back. If you sign up at aura.com/WPS, that's aura.com/WPS, you'll get a 2-week free trial. It'll be amazing. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll lose 10 pounds. None of that is true, but you will be safer on the web. Check it out today and on to the video. What's happening, folks? I'm joined in studio with Lucas Botkin today. What's happening, Lucas?
I'm here.
You're
present, ready.
And apparently thrilled to be hanging out with yours truly.
Be
nicer to me,
it's
man.
Lovely.
We're going to have a discussion on video games. You are a gamer. You
sure am.
Generally speaking, video games are a force for good. And I would love for you to kind of present why video games is something that is a worthy time investment for folks. And then I will tell you why you're completely wrong.
Excellent. So, video games, just like any medium, can be used for good or they can be abused. So marijuana, let's talk about that for a while. Just kidding. Film and TV, a lot of people view that as okay. And it's fine. And it's okay to binge on shows. It's okay to watch movies, and that's all right. Particularly boomers think this because that's what they had access to in pinball machines and stuff. And video games are somehow different than sitting on your couch and watching a TV or a movie, when in fact the two are pretty much the same thing. I would actually argue video games are more profitable, but we'll get to that. Ultimately, the thing you are doing when you are sitting back and you're either observing a movie or a TV show is you are being entertained by someone else's creation. It's no different than reading a fiction book. You are reading the work of someone else's fiction, and you are learning maybe some stuff in the book. You're getting your endorphins of, oh, that's interesting, creative. Main character just died. That sucks, whatever. Ultimately, video games are no different than these other two mediums.
So I would immediately, how much fiction do you read?
I hate fiction.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and say
Sure,
reading fiction is categorically different than
observing a movie, for example?
Yeah, movie, TV shows, video games. I'll go with, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Folks who would castigate video game players, but then they're binge watching
TV or football, my favorite.
I think that's an extremely fair point and a valid point. So if you're binge watching shows,
and complaining about video games, it's the same thing.
There's still going to be some overlap. Now, it does depend on, I think there's certain video games you could play that would be it's a better impact than binge watching TV shows, especially if the TV show is really bad and unedifying and unhealthy.
Yep.
And then there's some video games that you could play that were absolutely worse for you from
than watching a certain movie.
And so, but categorically speaking, I get the point. You're wasting excessive amounts of time here. But fiction reading, this is something I read a lot of fiction now, and I used to kind of downplay it of like, oh, who has time for that?
Who would do that?
No, it's one of one of the biggest things I need as a man in my vocation and is creative inspiration. Also, it's a very fun way to look at the world from different perspectives that are not your own.
Yes.
And your mind is active building out the world that you're reading. And so it is wildly more constructive than watching the
You do
other
have
medium.
So you do bring up a good point. So book reading requires a form of creativity in your mind that watching a movie won't.
Right. And so, but I want to go ahead and give you the TV show and the movie and the video games. I think that's a really good point.
Yes. I would say so too. I would say that to your point of inspiring creativity or an inspiration, I would actually say movies and shows too. I actually prefer shows for that. can do some of the same thing, especially if you're in a visual sort of a job atmosphere. Yeah. So I will watch shows and movies simply to get ideas for content to make for work.
Yeah.
Or like lighting and like, rubbish like that, So you can still get that in those forms of media that you are getting in reading a book.
Right.
But I will agree that reading a book is flexing a muscle that you can't
there you go.
with
That's
video
good.
games. You can't with a movie. It is different, but there's some muscle in playing a video game that you can't do with a book.
Got
and
it.
you can't do with a movie or a TV show.
I don't doubt that. It has to do with what kind of, finger muscle versus like core.
I'll give a perfect example. So I agree that I'm thankful for my parents. They let me play video games when I was growing up. Later on, when I became Gollum about video games, and it was the precious, and I needed it at all times, they took it away, and they gave it to me, and they moderated it. That was probably healthy for me. But the one thing they didn't do is they didn't give us consoles with controllers. They had us play, the only thing we had was computers, which was better, because back in the 90s, everyone's learning how to use computers. I was trying to learn how to use computers with video games. Which was excellent for future use.
Already, I love what you're saying. I'm going to hold that video games overall can be extremely dangerous, and it's very easy for it to be a net negative. Even though there's good ingredients, there's good elements that you're going to bring up. And I know some of your others, which I want you to state, and I'll probably agree with you. I'm like, yeah, those are good elements. I like that.
Yes.
But I have some arguments I think video games can be extremely damaging. I love that you just said that you were not able to moderate. It became very addictive. It became a bad thing, but you happen to have parents that actually made you boundaries for it.
Yep.
And in those boundaries, you were able to get more net good than the net bad. A lot of people, one in every 4 Americans are raised in a single parent home of that shows you the state of parenting.
Yeah. So
how many people don't have those kind of things?
So it's interesting to your point, though. So this is what was fascinating. I was the only one in the family addicted to video games. None of my siblings were. And so they weren't actually told they couldn't play. They could play whenever they wanted, but they chose not to. They were not as interested in playing video games as me. And me being as weird as I am, as autistic and wired, like I'm going to tell you, this is how weird I am. This is bounds of weirdness nobody knows. I don't just play a video game when I play. I have to play the video game. I have to listen to music, very fast-paced music. And the second I die, I Alt-Tab, and I go to my Outlook and I read emails because there's a 5-second respawn delay. So I'm getting 5 seconds of work in before I Alt-Tab back in and keep killing people.
That is absolutely psychotic.
It is. So so I'm wired. I'm coming at this from a very different angle that is very different than other people. Or better yet, I'll be playing the game without audio because you're visual stimulus only, which is actually more challenging and you can actually do better.
And you're streaming it so that you make money off of it too.
I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. No.
Well, anyway, that would be a unique situation.
And then I'm also watching Gordon Ramsay flame chefs while my wife's watching that on another monitor while I'm torching players in a video game. So I'm not the norm.
What is that rewiring your brain to do so that you can't really
crush at work? Crush at work like a madman. No, but actually, this brings me. So this is an interesting point. So I've talked to a bunch of couples recently because they know I play video games, and I still play video games. As successful as I am, I still do it. Elon Musk does too, like lots of people do. And they've asked like, "Hey, what does that do for you?" And you seem to turn out okay. What's up with video games? It does depend on the kid. Some kids. Some kids like reading books is what I found, that young people. And then some kids want the video game because they need constant stream of creativity or something that's challenging. Some kids need a challenge that changes, which is why I don't like watching TV or movies. I'm passive. I can't do a thing, which is why usually when my wife and I are watching a show like Hell's Kitchen or a TV show or something, we're on our phones within like 15 minutes. And we're doing work and then up and then here and then up and then that was kind of funny. And we're doing 2 things at once. It's why we get along, because just passively observing the entertainment it's not that it's not enough for us. It's almost like it's too what's the right word? It's too lax. It doesn't feel productive.
I think there is like a very impressive max efficiency taskmaster kind of thing. Right now I'm picturing that movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise where he's doing all the things.
Me when I'm gaming.
And I'm like, well, okay, and that's impressive. It's cool to be able to do that. But I wonder how much that's rewiring people's brains so that so that it's very difficult for a lot of people to be able to just sit
focus
down
on one thing. Yep.
Have a conversation, look someone in the eye, go deep into meaningful relationships, get lost in a book. Do you find it hard to just read a book?
Always.
For an hour
has.
of like,
always has.
Man, I think the foundation for young people's education, I know as we're homeschooling our kids, it's really more just get them in love with the right books. But as our brains are being rewired to be so starved for such wild amounts of information, you're the outlier freak exclusion. Everyone else, it's very difficult for them to just read a stinking book. And I'm like, though you're going to weather the storm well, almost everyone else is losing their ability to do something as simple and as critical as reading a book. What do you think of that? This could be rewiring our brains because, here, let me do a little biographical stuff in that, I have arguments against video games. I haven't really brought those out yet. This is kind of a different one.
You're letting me attack first, then you attack second. It's like Battleship. I'm going to shoot my volley.
Right now I'm just giving olive branches. I'm like, hey, I like that you had boundaries. In my household, I want my sons to be able to use video games without video games getting them.
Yeah.
So I want them to be able to engage with this thing so I don't have this forbidden fruit that the rest of the world gets to enjoy and you don't have any context for. And, one day you find it and you become a golem. So for us, it works with, we have a Wii. The old school Wiis?
I do. Old.
Yeah. Well, if I get like Skyrim Elder Scrolls, it'll be so fantastic. They're going to get sucked in. I'll get sucked in.
I want to see that, by the way.
Man.
Sucked in. Just bashing monsters.
It happened. I was living overseas, and I got Wii Lord of the Rings game, the Lego.
Right. But Lord of the Rings is Christian, so that's okay. Tolkien's Christian, so that's all right.
Either way, I'm just playing the Lego Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There's no gospel happening here. It's just, here's my Lego rings, and I'm whacking this bush to find another coin. And I'm really excited about getting all the bushes done. And well, my wife had said good night.
Yeah.
And I was just playing a little bit more. 30 minutes turned into a little bit longer until I'm playing. I'm just in a trance. And then I hear my wife say, "What are you doing?" And all of a sudden, I kind of came out of it. I realized through the window, light is coming, and it is morning. I have played through the entire night, just watching these pixels on a screen, and I felt like I was really accomplishing something. And anyway, and it was very shortly after that I got rid of the video game system, and I realized, man, I have a very addictive personality. I really got in there, and it was hard for me to moderate.
About yourself. That's great.
My son, I learned something about myself, and it's amazing. You shouldn't have to. It's like you could jump off a building and find out that, you're not made of rubber, and you're like, I learned something about myself. Like, I would rather learn without painful experience. With my sons, I want to teach them balance the way your dad did.
Yeah.
And so for my boys, if they have finished homeschool for the day, they have done all of their chores, they've had generally good attitudes, and it is raining outside, then we can play video games. And so we have a few different video games to do, and we want them always to...
What kind?
So
now I'm going to judge your selection in video games for productivity.
First and foremost, the prize... this isn't productivity. This is fun, rest, and play.
Okay.
Not everything should be maximized for... Sometimes no, let's just have fun. Let's spend some time. Let's rest.
I don't know what fun is, but okay, continue.
So I'll play James Bond GoldenEye with them.
Oh my gosh!
And we are amazing. We are amazing at James Bond GoldenEye. Then we've got we've got Mario Kart, we've got.
I'm judging hard right now.
I don't care. Okay, I'm a grown man.
Because now your point, video games are meant to be fun. This is correct. However, what if I told you there's a way to have fun playing video games but getting more out of it? By selecting better video games.
The whole point is we're playing together, we're interacting, we're having fun, and I don't want it. I don't want it to be an epic, addictive video game.
How is Mario Kart not addictive?
Because it's a game that resolves. Whereas Minecraft, it always sucks you in.
No, you're not wrong about that.
And so I want something that resolves in and of itself. In James Bond, we're always multiplayer mode, almost always. They did beat the game, but we play multiplayer mode, and we're going to go, all right, boys, bring it on, come at me. We got 5 rounds, and then we'll play 5 rounds or 3 rounds. Mario Kart, I want games that resolve. It doesn't bring them into an open world.
Yes.
So they played Lego Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yes.
But
Tolkien,
they have a time standard on that, so there's only so long that they can play.
Okay.
So anyway, all this allows them to interact with video games without being ruled by them, mastered by them.
And they're playing on a system, not a computer?
Right, it's console. Our kids almost have no screen time. They have no phones. We just gave my 11-year-old a tablet that's only used for videography. So they film and then they edit. So they're making movies and stuff, having a blast. But other than that, they'll do some math for homeschool on screens. And other than that, we really don't have screen time. But they read. They have read. My 10-year-old has read more books than I would submit 95% of college graduates. That's my guess. I mean, literally tons of books, chapter books at that. And so we're a reading household. It's also not impressive in that most college kids haven't read many books. But
no.
Anyway.
Well, that's me. I don't read.
So there's my confession.
Okay, that's
so
good.
So far you've said you've made a couple arguments for video games. Go ahead and make some more.
Yeah. So the main one is actually against consoles. I actually don't think console gaming is that it's not going to translate to other things later in life. Playing on a computer, which is absolutely probably the only thing I'm going to let my kids do, starts teaching them how to use a computer, which happens to be literally the way our entire world runs nowadays. I'm thankful I got to play computer-based video games when I was younger.
So you're like arrow key, space bar kind of thing?
Space bar. Okay. I have to type. I've got to open Windows. I've got to like manipulate just how the computer works or troubleshoot why the software is not working. Right. I had to do lots of things back in like the early 2000s to get games to work. I had to use a computer to learn how. And so as soon as I started, T.Rex, I just had a much more intimate knowledge of computers. And I actually bought a console for the first time when I was like 22 because I wanted to learn how to play on this stupid thing. And it is stupid because you're not as fast in my opinion because I never played on them. And I was like 22 or 23.
Like my son is learning like graphic design and videography, and he's interacting with computer stuff. They're learning typing. You could teach them programming and stuff like that when they're a little bit older. Of like, there's 100 different ways to. If you want to learn computers, there's far more efficient. Do other things. So there's far more efficient ways to teach them computers than getting sucked into a computer game.
Yes, and I would actually say yes and no. If they could start learning the computer earlier, because kids learn things so fast, that is actually going to allow them to focus on different things when they start learning a new program. So like for me, I played real-time strategy games almost exclusively growing up. Yeah. So I got little dudes, I've got resource management, I'm moving them around the map and doing stuff, and there's lots of window manipulation.
I could see how that could
and
be
then
helpful.
As soon as I got editing software, well, I already knew the shortcuts, keybind, like I already knew how everything works, like logically with a computer. I just now need to learn how the timeline works and like how the specific tools for the video editing works. But all the computer stuff came naturally. But then the second part, and this is dependent on video game, of course, is the type of video game you play. So I recently just played a game, Knights Sovereign 2, stupid name, whatever. It's a game where you pick a country in Europe, historical, and you try to take over Europe. Oh, you don't have to take over Europe, though. You don't have to kill and enslave everyone. You can win through technology and trade and politics and all of that, but it's 12th century Europe, and all the geography is correct. All of the stuff is historically accurate.
It's like playing Risk, but on a screen.
Yep.
Why not just play Risk in real life?
There's not as much information. I can't assassinate people. I can do that in this game. I can go marry a daughter off to this king to get political power, and then later ask him to go to war with Bulgaria because they suck. And then I can put all my armies on the border, and meanwhile sending a diplomat over here and convincing them to join in my aid and to fight.
Okay. Sounds pretty fun. Sounds pretty fun.
But from a historical aspect, I got into it, and I love history, although I've taken a big break from history just with all the work that I'm doing. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, this is 12th century Europe. Like, I remember some of this stuff. I remember the countries. I remember kind of what was going on. This is fascinating. And those are the kinds of games I want my kids to play at a young age, because you'll learn geography and stuff like that so much faster doing that than like coursework, like paperwork. But again, it's so much of this conversation, and this is what sucks, depends on the person.
It does.
Because I had siblings who didn't give a flying rip about playing video games, and I was over here just like freaking out.
Let me try to summarize. Video game usage should be moderated, and it is dependent on the person. If you moderate appropriately, then it can be used for a good thing.
Yes.
You can learn some strategy and some kind of complex,
on the game,
cerebral things.
Problem solving.
And it can help you learn how to use computers in general.
Yep. Computer
so
science.
I've gotten a context, and I've gotten 2 pros. What other kind of high-level pros?
Learning insults is a good one. Once
no,
start
you
playing.
suck.
Yeah.
What else? What's a third thing?
So
I know the gun industry.
The fourth thing is probably, and this happened later for me. Well, early on we would have LAN parties, which they don't do anymore, sadly. So we'd play as a family or brothers. And so like there was a bonding time doing that. So fun family activity that we like to do. Cool. Like it can be anything.
Me and my
like
sons
it.
do that
You do it too. Cool.
in small moderation.
When you're older, if you have friends, you know, you might game with them in the evenings and talk about work, have deep conversations.
I don't like this one. I don't like this one.
And so back when I used to game, I sometimes game. There's a couple guys I game with sometimes, but we'll talk about work. One of them's going through the police academy, so we'll talk about like training and stuff. And meanwhile, we're just destroying people or destroying bugs, robots. If you don't want to destroy people, and so we're having fun.
This is not an impressive
doing an
brag to
activity.
me.
Doing an activity while I'm quite good at games, by the way.
My pixels on my screen are better than their pixels. Like it's none of it's real. None of it's real. Sorry, go
My
ahead.
feelings
Go
are
ahead.
real. So it's a time to bond-ish. The problem with video games that I think is happening is, and I wouldn't say it was so much for me because I'm just weird anyway, but people rely on relationships through a video game. Through Discord, they don't actually see the person. A lot of it's across the country, so my friends don't even live nearby. So the only way to talk to them is either I call them on the phone or I'm playing a video game, which is basically a phone call as well with them.
Right, but just man.
But I know in person's better. But like, how am I gonna see you all the time? We could game.
Last night
We could get in a Discord call.
Last night I was with 50 dudes. We had an awesome time. We're hanging out.
Okay, good.
Excellent. There was we were playing like a basketball game, and
Oh wow,
we hung out and
you're very fortunate.
talked, and then we had a bunch of burgers and stuff, and it's buddies. And then tomorrow I got a few dudes coming over, and
You know how many
we're
people
hanging
have
out.
this? You
And,
know how many people have this nowadays?
well, it used to be everyone had this.
Correct.
But the problem is we've withdrawn from real life relationships and instead put in this superficial replacement of social media, reality
Yes.
TV, video games. And so people have
I'd say social media is the worst.
Social media is the
It's the
worst.
worst.
Nobody has real authentic relationships
true.
anymore, and it's destroying us.
How?
Well,
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just
because
asking.
meaningful relationships is probably what life is most about. And we don't really have meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
And so in joining into these artificial places, we are scratching an itch,
Yes.
but not real. It's kind of like instead of eating real food, we're eating McDonald's all the time. And so it gives you satisfaction in the moment of playing,
Right,
but
yeah,
afterward it leaves you more hollow. And this is my, I guess, first critique against video games is it detracts from meaningful relationships. I think as a man, not as a boy, but as a man, especially a man that's growing in responsibility as men should. I'm a father.
Yes.
And that takes a certain amount of time if I want to really invest in my boys. And I'm a husband. I'm involved in my church.
Yep.
I have meaningful friendships and relationships. I have multiple businesses.
Yeah.
And then I have the running of my homestead as well. And then I have rest as well. And that rest means something specific. And so it's like a man that is 30, 40,
Actually,
50 years old.
What do you classify and what do you do for rest?
Wonderful question. For me, it's being with my wife and and just hanging out and really doing nothing. It's going
Just doing
for
nothing.
It's going for it's talking. Doing nothing or talking. It's walking around the farm. It's reading books. We do a lot of reading. It's hanging out with friends. It's having a fire.
So is it bad if someone else goes, "Hey, my rest is playing a video game instead of sitting by a fire"?
No, I mean I'm not completely anti all video games. Clearly, I'm using video games, and in those contexts with my boys,
yeah.
like I would never, as a grown man, play a video game by myself.
You will if you play with me. we will get
then
on Discord. and we will
Definitively, I
talk.
wouldn't, because then I would be playing with you, and I wouldn't be playing by myself.
What if it's
Definitionally, that is not true.
Okay, no, I'm challenging you right now. What if it's a video game with an incredible, impactful story, just as much so, if not more than a book?
Now I am less interested.
Less
than before.
interested in the game.
Yes, your
or-
added content, because if it was a spectacular video game, I want to keep coming back to it.
What
And
if
then-
well, they have resolution, so they won't play
and
forever.
here's my second problem: of it robs you from meaningful relationships.
Sure.
It also detracts you from other better uses of time. It's the opportunity cost. I would say the same thing to someone binge watching TV show.
But you can't be
and
productive
video game.
24/7.
You're right.
I can't, and I work all the time. I can't do it all the time.
Right, but it's not just about making every minute count. It's generally, especially with young men, it's robbing ambition for life. And this is probably one of the worst pernicious parts of video games. A young man
Yep.
will delve into video games, teenager, 20s or something, and where he should be developing real world skills. He
I
should
agree.
be investing in a career. Instead, he's spending 10, 20 hours a week on a video game. You could have made $15,000 instead that year. You could have learned a new skill.
so it's
you could have read through the Bible, 7 times.
Or you could have gone and found a woman.
You could have done it, but instead we're leading the kid who, instead of going out and accomplishing something in the real world, he's saving the galaxy by finding the skeleton sword, and he rescues a princess from intergalactic destruction. He walks away after a 6-hour video game rip feeling like he's done something productive. And now he doesn't go out and hunt for the job or climb that mountain.
Hunt for a woman.
He feels like he has done so. And so it's the ambition robbing. I think young men playing copious amounts of video games have no idea what it's actually costing them. It's not
agree.
that the video game is bad. It's that you are wasting away your ambition that's meant to accomplish something real.
So I have a real world example.
Tell
Actually,
me.
I have two. So it's funny. So when I started T-Rex...
Give me one, because I want to start rolling out my other stuff. I got more. I'm on number 2.
No, I got 2 good points.
All right,
so
come
the
on.
first one is when I started T-Rex. So I took a break from video games because one, I don't know why. I just wasn't playing them as much. And then I started T-Rex, and I was working all the time.
Yeah.
I'm talking, I did nothing else but work.
Yeah.
Skipped events, skipped meaningful relationships because the work was more important. But hold on. So kept going, kept working. And then like 3 years in was like, you know what? I think I can play some video games. And then I started playing a little bit. So like there was definitely a time of I'm going to focus on stuff and then I'm going to work some video games back in. Now I'm going to keep working on stuff, working all the time, not playing. And that happened. So it does happen. People can do it. Or maybe I'm the anomaly. But I have a second real world example of what you just talked about. So I had someone at work. They're not there anymore, so I can talk about it. And they were not growing at work. They were not progressing in their position. But they always were interested in raises and being respected for the position and leveling up, but without doing like the work, in my opinion. But they spent a lot of time completing a lot of video games, and I knew it because they would talk about it often. And I was just sitting there going, "Hold on, it took me a month to finish this game, playing a little bit every week because it's one of these like open world like games, and you've done 4 playthroughs in that time that it took me to do it in like a month or 2 to do this one game." And so your point on, people are definitely using it to distract from more productive things is absolutely correct, because what people should be doing, young people especially, is, your 9-to-5 job, you're going to be doing your 9-to-5 job. The question is, what are you doing from 5 to 9 after you get home to get better at whatever? And so if you're in the phase of you need to like build up and get situated, you probably can't play any video games or watch any movies or do any television like almost at all.
Yeah.
If you're in that, like you're 20 or you're 18, you just moved out and you're getting situated, you probably need to give up on like a lot of fun things to do to get situated.
They shouldn't play video games.
Once you're situated, if you want to work it in, you probably can. But not, I would advise young people who don't make a lot of money, they don't know what they want to do in life. Those people are probably the ones who should not be playing video games the most.
I agree.
Even more than, say, kids. Like kids who are at home, who are using it for educational reasons and learning, they're good. They don't have to They probably can't learn specific job skills quite yet if they're like 12 necessarily. But when you're like 18, like 16 to like 21 and you're trying to get situated, that I would argue that is the most pivotal time you should not be gaming as much.
I completely agree with you.
all.
Now, are you not concerned that you have these young people, when you air out the advantages of video games, them wanting to justify what they wanted to do anyway, latches on to the positives that you were putting on.
They look at me.
And I'm admitting, I'm like, oh, well, Lucas does, and he says it increases reflexes, and you could have just gone and learned boxing in real life, but instead, you're doing reflexes.
That's why I don't use that as an example.
Got it.
Dumb.
Some people do. But anyway,
they're stupid.
There's advantages. I see that. And then they just don't have the discipline to be able to moderate. Most folks are hopelessly addicted to their screens. And so aren't you concerned a little bit where you say, okay, here's some positive, or here's the positives, and so net win because of these positives.
If you're doing all these other things
but nobody can moderate. Listen, some statistics.
Bring up the stats.
This was shocking to me. So I saw a couple different statistics regarding the size of the video game industry.
It's huge.
I saw the low one is a $184 billion industry a year. I saw the high piece is a $250 billion industry. Now, we can't recognize how big video games is for that. Of like, how addicted is the world and the American public to video games? Let me put this in context. To equal the size of the video game industry, you'd have to add the top sports, NBA, NFL, and MLB all together, and you're not even close. Throw in Fox, CNN, MSNBC. Still, nowhere close. All that combined, nowhere even close. Then you add the porn industry, all of it. You're still not even a drop in the bucket close. Only if you added in, you're still something like 3 to 6 times larger. Is all of that bucket, the video game industry's 3 to 6 times larger. You only even out if you add Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Now you're ending with apples to apples. All ad revenue. So to say that video games have captured us in a highly addictive kind of way is statistically true. The average video game player is 36 years old. 54% of Americans are gamers. Americans 18 to 29 years old spend 6 to 10 hours per week playing. 6 to 10 hours. You're looking at me like you play a lot more than that.
I don't.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Lord help us. I'm like,
full disclaimer, I played a game for 8 hours.
In one sitting?
With buddies. It's the most fun I've had in a long time. Yeah. A new game, and it was on a Sunday, and we played for 8 hours and had a good time. And I was like, you know what? I haven't done that in years.
I think I would have a blast doing.
Yeah. It would have been fun if you had been in there. But
I would have had a blast.
We were killing bugs. We were liberating democracy. We were,
Is this your shirt?
Shirt
well, don't here. Show them the camera.
Okay, yeah.
This means nothing to me. I have no idea. That looked like somebody screwed up a Pac-Man drawing.
No, it's cool. It means more than that. You're dissing on something very important.
No, I'm saying I don't understand what this is. I'm not approving or disproving. I'm just saying this is a little ghost goblin that looks like he got out of the Pac-Man video game. You know?
Yes, yeah.
A little quarter of the joystick.
That's basically the game. You summed it up. Now you cut in footage of the game. And
so I don't doubt video games are fantastic. I've seen somebody play Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls, and I thought, I can never play that game. If I started, I would have to conquer it I'd have to find every secret, every trick.
Interesting.
I can't do that. I can't handle that. I'm running from Potiphar's wife here. I'm a grown man with copious amounts of responsibility, and I refuse to spend that much time on me. And after I've played some of these video games of not only am I feel like I've accomplished something big. So now when I'm done, it's not like I've rested in a book. I stretch and I'm like, now let me go accomplish something. No, I feel like I've already accomplished something. So now I'm like, I'm going to rest from the conquering in the video game.
That's so interesting.
And so it's not good rest either. Now it is not work. It's very fun, but you can have a lot of fun and it not be rest.
You're saying it's not rest for you to play video games?
I'm saying it's very fun and it's a certain kind of rest.
Yes.
But the rest that I'm getting from it,
yes,
because I'm accomplishing something, with this Skinner box inside me, it is satiating my drive, my ambition. And so whereas normal rest, a walk, talking, my favorite way to rest is I've got books around me. I build a fire in my, not fireplace. It's the, wood stove. Thank you, Ben.
Yes.
In my wood stove, I pull up a seat in front of it. Me and my wife sit beside each other. We talk throughout the day. This is my Sabbath. And we just read and we'll go on a walk. And after that day of rest, I'm ready to go kick tail in the workplace. I'm ready to go accomplish something. I'm ready to help build the church. I'm ready to invest in relationships. But with a video game, I'm not. And I'll even kind of get wired in a little bit, Gollum-ish. And so
interesting. So discipline issues. Okay.
Yes, correct. If I find an area that it's difficult to maintain discipline, I'm going to run from that area.
What about conquering it?
But yeah, this is, I win. I have won. I've conquered video games by not allowing myself to be seduced by them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how do you,
it's actually how do you say that?
Here, hold on. How do you keep from being hypnotized? Stop looking at the swinging watch. Walk out the freaking door. I noticed Joseph.
I'd rather just grab it.
Joseph ran from Potiphar's wife. Temptation, run from it. I don't hang out with girls alone.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm disciplined. I'm in no danger of cheating on my wife, but I'm never even going to put myself in the situation where there might even be a temptation. Same thing with video games.
And this is why I think the problem with video games, this is the problem, and there's no solving it in this conversation, is it depends on the person.
I think it does. It does.
Just like, because I know there are, I remember hearing stories of homeschool moms who would just watch TV all day while the dad's off working. And I'm like, that is just as bad as people complaining about the husbands playing video games.
That is not
when
good. No.
Other people are doing this sort of thing. And so it really does come down to, it depends on the person and how they utilize video games. Like video games definitely don't control me now like they used to. I can play a game or I cannot play a game. And some nights I'd prefer to work on stuff in like my calendar, Outlook, scripts, whatever. And then other times I'm like, nope, I want to play a video game. Like on Sunday, I have to decide, am I going to go to the range and shoot precision guns or am I going to try to game with the boys? Yeah. Those are kind of, because my wife won't be there. So it's like, what am I going to do? And so I do think the question is what do young people need, or what do they need to hear to learn how to master it? Because I don't think it's necessarily something that you just have to run away from necessarily. You have to master it.
There are some video games that I recognize, like
you do.
I know good self-mastery. That's great.
That's good. Yeah, you know it from experience. You have to do it.
I recognize I'm not gonna play with that. And other people everyone has their own unique sets of strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
Alcohol presents 0% temptation to me. None. I would know it by now. I'm in my 40s. It's no temptation. However, someone else, if they had one sip of wine, alcohol out, I'm like, that person is strong to recognize where their weakness is, and they're not going to be around. They're not going to touch it. And I'm like, I think that's strong. I think that's wise.
Yeah.
Video games, especially really awesome ones, would suck me in. They'd suck me in. And so I'm not going to play it. So even the gaming system, it's a Wii. It's older tech for me and my kids. So it's not addictive, and the game isn't fantastic. What did you say?
It's not an open world.
Yeah. And so we're not doing any of that. I have two more critiques against video games I haven't mentioned, but I wanted you to give me one more or more. But I'm just saying, I've been waiting for you to say something about the gun world.
I'm not here. I'm not here to argue that video games are good or bad.
No, you were. You started out with good. Now you've decided a more diplomatic approach.
No, because I think video games, I don't see how video games have a unique thing working against them that movies, television, and even books don't have.
I can think of something.
That's great. Let's hear it.
I've already given you.
Which one? Oh, that's addictive for certain people more than other mediums?
Yeah, it's
But I could argue that TVs and movies are addictive to certain people more than others.
The ambition robbing. Because you don't accomplish something during a movie and a TV show. No, you don't accomplish anything.
No, I know.
I'm a spectator. But in a video game, no, I am the control. I am controlling. I am accomplishing. It's me. I'm not a passive observer. I'm an active participant. And so in that way, it robs ambition more than those other things.
Does everyone feel video games are like that? I don't, for example.
So
Like when I complete a game or when I place top on in a match,
nope.
I get no satisfaction.
No, even the
or ambition robbing.
No, the payoff for you then wouldn't be the final trophy. It's the pursuit and challenge. You have taken great glee telling me multiple times that you were crushing people. And that's your joy. It's not the trophy.
Correct.
At the end, it's you want to eviscerate people and have that power and destroy people. You want to exert your prowess over someone else
in a video game. Thank you very much.
Right. But I'm just saying that's your payoff. And so you as an active participant are spending a certain amount of ambition in that pursuit. And I'm not judging. I've got the same. I got the same thing. It's just it comes out in other ways.
I can see that. I don't think it applies. Like for me, like I don't. I will say this is actually fascinating to bring this up. There are, and I've experienced this with people. They take games too seriously, which is I think what you're talking about. Yeah. Like I don't take games so seriously, like where I have to win, and gaming with certain people. I have noticed this. If they take a game so seriously, and I like team kill them, and I'm like, haha, funny, and they're like, no, you, and then I'm like, I don't want to play with you.
They're going to have to walk that out for a week and have an intervention.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't fun. I'm playing to have fun. Like I don't have, I think part of it, my wife and I were talking about this recently, because she and I have so much purpose in our daily life, and she plays video games with her brother, we don't have to care about how good or well or finding all the trophies or whatever, because we have enough going on in our real life. We don't have to put all of our purpose into a video game. To that point, though, are there people that do that? Yes. Yeah. Because they don't have enough purpose in their real life. And I think that is the crux of it. And if they don't have purpose in their real life and they're finding it in video games or TV or movies or weed or whatever, that is a problem. They need to go find purpose in their real life, whatever it happens to be. And then if they supplement a fun thing to do every once in a while, they just want to smash a ton of weed or something, like, okay, fine, but I'm kidding.
And given the highly addictive nature of video games, in the ambition robbing that it does, and the size of the industry, is the
size a bad thing?
No, but it is indicative of how widespread it is.
Oh,
meaning
it is.
It's really addictive and it's getting much worse. I don't think young people have the ability to really self-moderate. You couldn't do it. Your dad had to do it for you. And you learned moderation, and then you were able to take it over on your own. As a parent teaches moderation to a kid in general, that's a universal. Yeah, my dad did the same thing to me, and
I actually don't know. And here's the problem: is I don't actually know how I would have done if I hadn't been moderated when I was 10.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would have been fine once I was older and started my work.
Jury's
I
out.
Don't know.
Just as a general thing is what I'm saying. What do you think the video game world, the first-person shooter world, if I'm saying it wrong,
that's correct.
And its impact on firearms and Second Amendment, do you think that's a positive thing, negative thing? What do you think about?
Well, I do what I do because of it, so I'd say it's a positive. It's great.
Go into that a moment.
So video games as a whole, just like any medium, will educate on whatever it is. So if you play, and this is why I don't really like fantasy games that much, because they don't really educate on anything. If you play a game with firearms and they have decent firearms in it, you will learn firearms. If you play a game on NATO versus the Soviets, you will learn what technology we had in the 80s and what technology they had in the 80s. Yeah. If you play a medieval fighting, not fantasy, but fighting game, you'll learn what a longsword is versus a cleaver versus a mace. You'll learn. You'll learn the stuff. You'll learn the verbiage. Where video games early on, I think, helped is they were able to accurately portray mostly names and types of firearms and manufacturers and kind of how they worked. Yeah. So back during, this even goes back to the assault weapons ban. During the assault weapons ban, where people couldn't own certain kinds of firearms, they could still learn about them in video games. And they could sort of get accustomed to them. So once the assault weapons ban was over and firearms manufacturers started rolling out more AR-15 type guns, people knew immediately what they should and could go and buy. Yeah. So I would say, yes, it helped educate people on what existed and what they would want to buy. And desensitizing people to firearms in general, not violence per se. I don't think that argument can be made. There hasn't been enough study on that.
I would like to talk about that, but I want you to stay on task.
Yeah. So I would say it's been a net positive. There are tons of gamers who, like, if you watch Hollywood movies, firearms are typically portrayed horribly. Yeah. Heroes won't use them. They'll go, oh, that's like Denzel Washington in Equalizer, just stupid. He refuses to use a gun.
Batman, inexplicably,
Batman,
no guns.
No guns. Yeah, it's stupid. And so the
Throws him off a cliff.
So the bad guys have guns and the good guys don't. And so if you're a young person growing up watching that, you may think that. You may think guns are not for the good guys.
And so I'm millennial generation. And the millennial generation, more than Gen Z, the generation at your generation.
How dare you? I'm X.
You were definitely not. X is older than me.
Never mind.
Yeah, you're Gen Z.
Are you sure?
That's so Gen Z of you to say. But you guys, like Gen Z has a lot of Second Amendment push more than the millennials.
That is correct.
And you would attribute that to
100% video games.
Video games.
And social media.
Yep.
And an increase in firearms content.
And the YouTube world, which is us.
And YouTube, yeah.
We did it, buddy, up top. We did it. It was us.
I'm an introvert.
You're welcome, Gen Z.
You're not wrong, though. I will say, so it is a game. And I had a bunch of calls with journalists a while ago, and I could tell where they were going with this. They were trying to pin it on a certain thing. But it definitely was, video games got a lot of us interested in guns, or more interested in it. Like, definitely me, playing Call of Duty. And then when I realized I could buy firearms, I had a sense of what types of firearms I was interested in, militaristic type weapons. I didn't have to go join the military for that. I could play a video game and then figure out kind of what I wanted to own and buy. And then I started doing that. Social media and YouTube took it further because now we can show the real stuff in action and show and talk about it that they can't get from video games. The video games, what I told a couple journalists on the phone a year or two ago was video games only do about this much. They actually don't do a lot for educating you on guns. They get you started and interested and intrigued. It's YouTube and social media and actually buying your first gun that actually does it.
Yeah.
Video games are very limited in they're not going to teach you recoil. They're not going to teach you like certain things, the feel, the weight even. Yeah. There's just some stuff a video game never will do, but you can at least see the difference between an M4 and what it can do potentially on a player at 500 meters versus an MP5 that just can't do it. And then you're like, oh, okay, I now understand the difference between these two guns.
Yeah, you could smoke me at Modern Warfare and then not be able to
clean
a plate rack at 3 yards.
That is correct. That is correct.
Well, let me go ahead and concede a couple points. You said video games can be helpful in educating you on firearms and stuff. Yep. I'm like, I think that's true. Another thing, and I think this is the even better point with bigger teeth, is it's allowed the next generations, Gen Z and the one after, to really be more cozy toward the Second Amendment. And I think 100%. I think that is true. I think that is true. And so I really like that about video games. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah. Again, it's all plus minuses here. And so I like that that's there. Let me concede those points. I've got a couple counterpoints as well.
Excellent.
And what I'm arriving at here is this. There is pros and cons to doing video games. I think the cons are overall worse than the pros. And here's my metaphor for it.
I probably agree with you, actually.
All right. Well,
I
cool.
probably do. Depending on person.
McDonald's is food, kind of. And inside the food, there is some grams of protein to be had.
Yeah, you
can get some carbohydrate.
If you only eat it.
You literally will. You literally will.
will.
But I mean, that's the point of so you could look at McDonald's and say, see, there's protein in that.
I'm
that's healthy for
calories,
you. It's got some vitamin A in that. And that's good for you. I'm like, yeah. It's true. There are some good ingredients and good things, but overall, if you only eat McDonald's, it's going to kill you. If you eat McDonald's too much, and not even only McDonald's, but you just eat fast food too much, you're ultimately going to fall victim to the number two killer in America. Number one killer in America is abortion. Number two killer, and that's heart disease.
Are they going to say obesity?
Obesity, heart disease, it's all kind of rolled into one thing, but no, our bad diets, it is actually killing you. And in the same way, video games, there are redeeming aspects of it. By and large, it is doing far more harm than good. And that's the point. And so if you can do it in moderation, then enjoy it in healthy boundaries that you set. And if you can't do it in moderation and you find yourself playing hours each week, you should stop cold turkey and not play anymore. I've got two more things that it does. One is it hurts your physical health because it shifts you more to a sedentary lifestyle.
Sedentary? Oh, yeah.
You get real good at playing football on your gaming console, but you still can't go out and throw a spiral, and you're chubby, and you're eating bad food.
Well, if you're fat, just don't be. is really what you're saying.
That's right. And one way to get in healthier shape is to spend your time working out in the gym or join an ultimate frisbee league or do whatever you want to do, whatever's popular with you. Go play an actual sport. You want to work on coordination? Go learn boxing. Go join a jiu-jitsu gym. Do something so you're not sedentary. Another thing is this, and this is more open-ended. I have no idea whether this is true, and it's my last thing. I wonder what the mental health consequences of some more violent video games are. Now, follow me on this.
Sure, no, but yeah.
Would you concede that men watching pornography leads them down a pathway that they're more likely to practice sexual deviancy in real life? You get that dopamine hit, what you're attracted to starts to morph.
And then eventually you have to do different or whatever.
And now instead of being satisfied with the bride of your youth, you need buckles and chains and whips and who knows whatever else. There's a certain degeneracy and deviancy that it leads to, even acting out in real life. Like the pedophiles that have been on sex offender registry searches, that's always... every single one of those stories started with internet child pornography. And so there's the medium, and that medium opened them up to certain amounts of deviancy. So you're on board with that thing?
Yes. So studies have definitely shown that, yes.
So I see that, okay, that medium led to in the real world deviancy. And that's true, and we know that to be true. Now, video games is not the same, but could it be that, Grand Theft Auto, I'm running around, and I think it's funny to... just completely murk this nun crossing the street and whatever, and you're just anarchy, and this is fun, and we're all laughing about it, and it kind of slowly makes you a little bit more, impervious to this stuff in the same way that, that deviancy can happen by engaging in this alternate world, fantasy. Why couldn't video games contribute to more violent behavior and mental unhealth?
I think they could in the right circumstance.
Grand Theft Auto, anarchy, having lots of fun, and you do that a lot.
I think, again...
You just go active killer all the time.
Yeah, I've done all of it.
Right.
I'm pretty fine, right?
The jury is out.
Anyway, so I played Grand Theft Auto. I've played everything.
Make an argument why it is true for porn, but it is impossible for video
games. The argument I have is it didn't do it to me. I can only speak from my experience. It didn't do it for me, but I could see how if you have a young person who is very impressionable, so ages 8 to 12,
you don't know if it's done it to you. Let's say
it's true.
Generally, what it is somebody who would commit heinous, awful, morally reprehensible acts in a fictitious video game and delight in doing it. Let's just say what that is a complete lack of empathy for humanity. That's what that is.
Yeah, but
how do you know that without playing all these video games, you could actually have been a more empathetic person than you are?
I don't.
So it is possible that some of that violent video game play actually changed you in a little bit of a way and made you less empathetic than you otherwise would have been.
I mean, I guess if I'm sending tens of thousands of knights to their demise,
what if dozens of plays would actually do a little bit of a move, like working out? It doesn't happen all at once, but over time, generally results are made. And similarly with this, over time, mental health is chipped away at.
And this is where I think the only way that the question could be answered, well, it's too tough.
I don't know. It just looks...
I could see... No, I understand. Like, if I play a game right now, so like this game I just played, Knights 2, Sovereign 2, whatever, I am killing tens of thousands of knights and stuff, and I'm sending my knights in, and they're trampling spearmen and just crushing them, because I have to take over the kingdom, because I needed their stuff. Nowadays, I do that. Yeah, I don't feel anything from doing this. Probably because I'm mature and I have purpose in life with T.Rex and what I'm doing, and I'm married, that playing the video game and expanding over Europe as Hungary-based is what I was doing. I could see how maybe an impressionable young person, say age 8 or 9, who doesn't understand the value of human life, doesn't understand purpose in life, and they probably don't have much purpose yet. I mean, they're 8, so they don't have like a lot of ambition yet. I could see how under the right circumstance, and then you introduce pharmaceutical drugs, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yes, it is.
But that is usually tied in with all the like the GTA stuff and all that, which is why GTA gets used as an argument. I could see it twisting someone's perspective on humanity in general, especially if they were like, if you took someone, probably the perfect scenario would be you take someone who's highly obsessive. They have a single parent household. They never see their parent because their parent detests them. They're in a basement playing, switching between games, but they're just playing all sorts of stuff. And then they're put on a drug of some sort that twists their perspective even more. I could see all of that combined affecting them. Video games on their own, I don't think so. On their own, if you're in a good household and maybe, you're playing GTA or you're playing... It's funny that GTA is always used as an example because there's games that are far worse.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Got it. I don't know this
GTA,
stuff.
Sorry. Yeah. It's interesting GTA is always used, and I actually think that was a bit of marketing towards boomers and millennials, that GTA is the bad game, and it was marketed to Christians that way. Whereas in the game I'm playing, I'm killing tens of thousands of people and sending troops to their doom, which I would argue is just as bad as me shooting some cops.
I don't know. There's something different and allowing somebody to first-person shooter go up and intimately knife a cop. And then all of a sudden you do that, and it I imagine the endorphin rush and the adrenaline, and then they get used to doing that. But and then it's just something fun and something hilarious that they do. There is, I
can see that.
Just like where you start is not where you end up. Even if maybe video games is not. Right. It's the bad guy alone in a vacuum, as you're saying. I'm like, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of contributing factors, but perhaps this could be an entryway. Like marijuana is the gateway drug.
Sure.
And you're just starting to do that, and it's just a little pot, and then you're tripping balls, 3 years later of now you're on meth and you have no teeth, and that it took a 7-year thing of little things, but it could be a slippery slope gateway. Doesn't mean it will be.
Sure.
But I'm asking the question, is all. And so
I got no answer.
Yeah. Well,
that's the problem is no one has an answer.
Because I can see that it is true for porn. It's difficult for me to not immediately say, well, then it must be true in some degree for some people for violent video games as well. In specific kinds. It's not like all of a sudden you start playing Minecraft and now you go shoot up a school.
So here's an interesting one. So let's take movies, for example. What kind of people like horror movies?
Yeah.
And where did that start? Watching The Godfather and then slowly descending into horror?
Yeah,
I don't know. I have
right.
no idea.
And that would be a similar trend line that I'd say of that's also
they start with
unhealthy.
Toy Story and now they're down into horror.
To round out our conversation, I wanted to give another win for your side, and we need to wrap this up.
Don't have a side.
Well, we're in general agreement, for the purposes of a good discussion, you're a little more on this side. I'm a little more on that, and we're having a good discussion.
I game and you don't game as much. Correct.
That's the size.
Yes,
we're not adversarial, but it's because I'm here. Case in point, I'm making something for you over there. I think flight simulation and shooting simulation kind of things.
I wouldn't even classify those as video games.
Well, if you did,
simulators.
Those would be really good video games if they were classified. So I've done some of these Virtua systems where it's very immersive, and though it's not an actual gunfight, it is.
You're getting some stuff out of it.
I'm getting some real good stuff out of there. I've got a real gun or something that operates much like a real gun.
What if you shoot the wrong person too many times? Could that be like GTA?
Well, but in these simulators with you're
getting punished.
Yeah, you're getting punished. I mean, you could get shot for that kind of thing, or you lose the game for that kind of thing.
What if you like the shocks? What if you're a masochist?
Now you're just throwing stuff at the wall. Now you're like contrarian. What if the sky was made of cottage cheese?
We're adversaries. That's what we're supposed to do.
No, so
I classify those as that is like just 100% education is how I see those.
Well, if someone wanted to classify those as video games, I would concede of flight simulators. I'm like, that looks awesome. Shooting simulators of like these interactive.
Some of them are good.
Wild, cool stuff. And I see
VR.
Those as,
have you done any VR?
I've done a little bit. We did something on the YouTube channel. I was not good.
And what do you think about that?
I think that has some really wonderful advantages, like everything else I've conceded here, and a terrifying negative because it's so immersive and potentially so addictive, especially when they work it all out even more so. I think you're going to
See people lost in the sauce.
People get lost. People will start thinking of that as the real world and this is the fake. And they really just live in this world right here so that they can disappear into this completely alternate universe that they control, they play God in.
So this is my question. So
that looks really scary to me.
It does. This is the fundamental question, though. So that tech could do that to people.
Yeah.
And let's say we ban that tech. Is that person still going to go do the same? Are they still going to fall into the same thing, doing something else?
Well, I don't like government to be able to have power to be able to
I'm just
ban
asking.
that.
Yeah, but the point still is like there's a certain kind of person that's just going to, they have zero discipline.
Yeah, you're free.
And they will fall for anything, whether it's a immersive thing or it's drugs or it's alcohol or whatever. Like, so someone like me who is disciplined, who can take any of these mediums, I can play Grand Theft Auto, I can play whatever and still be a normal human.
You are not a normal human. No one thinks you're normal. You're not normal. Ben, is he normal?
Lucas is super normal.
That's such a lie. Why would you? You're on my payroll, bro.
Well, when he stepped out of the room, I offered him a little, little envelope of money. But my point is, I think the crux of the issue is what are the kinds of people, or what do those people need to prevent themselves from falling into being deceived and being so easily robbed of ambition, regardless of medium? That's the question. Like, because some of these people, they just may do it anyway, and it may not matter. It may not matter what systems get invented or not, or regulated or self-regulated. They may just fall into it anyway, which sucks. Yeah. I mean, is there anything that can be done for those people?
Well, I mean, everyone is free to drink themselves into a coma, or you are free to go skydiving without a parachute. You are free to have no discipline in any area of your life. You're just going to reap the consequences of that. Of like, you want to be.
And this is where the main issue I have with people who play lots of video games is when they claim that they're not doing well at work. They're not doing well at life.
I believe that.
And they're not able to go, well, it's also because I play 20 hours of video games.
Of course.
And that's when I have a problem with people where they make all these complaints while not validating the problems they're doing. Or my favorite, they go, I can't afford to buy guns or night vision. And I go, well, how much do you drink? And it's hundreds of dollars a week. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be complaining about guns being too expensive.
That's true.
It's sort of that same the overall concept. I agree with you, though, that video games, just like the other things, are highly dangerous. And in some ways, maybe more dangerous than, say, TV, especially for me. Like, I can't get hooked on TV. And I can't. It's just not, it's too passive. I need something with more, doing more stuff. But again, I'm not normal.
Squirrel.
Yeah, that's why I alt-tab to my email when I'm playing a video game, because 5 seconds is too long to wait to respawn.
Man, cool. Well, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
I think
neither of us won.
That's a good place to land, though. That's a good place to land.
It's good
because it was good. The whole point is to be able to allow other folks to be able to have more data and more context, so that they can live better lives and to be more productive members of society. I want people out there to be better husbands and fathers and friends and running businesses and being employed. So wherever you are. I would like people to make better decisions and be good forces, for good in the world. I want more warrior poets, stronger warrior poets, and more of them. That's what I'm after. And I don't think video games is a real good thing that helps you on that pursuit. But
I don't disagree.
As you pointed out, there are some benefits to be had.
And this is my position. My position is, if you're going to do it, do it as productively as possible. If you're going to waste time as productively as possible. That is my point. And I have that for everything. I'm not just going to waste time. I'm going to do it. Maximum productivity, efficiency. My wife's the same way, and that's why we get along great.
Sounds good. And I'm going to let Lucas have the last word. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. You can find Lucas at his website or YouTube or social media. It's either Lucas Botkin or it's T.Rex Arms. He's not hard to find. Type any of that stuff in. Nope, not Reddit. Reddit is not a good place. But now... everyone's going to jettison everything I just said, and they're only going to go to Reddit. So, way to be an idiot. I was trying to help you.
It's more fun.
You're a goon.
More fun.
Guys, Lucas Botkin, thanks so much for tuning in. Trade hard, trade smart. We'll see you next time.